Hello, my name is Harold Lapidus, and welcome to the Boston Herald podcast. My very special guest today is G.E. Smith. G.E., if I may call you that,
Yes.
is someone that you've heard, whether you know it or not. Of course, if you're already watching this, you probably already know who he is. G.E. was the lead guitarist in the Hall & Oates band from 1979 to 1985 when they were churning out hits like Kiss on My List, You Make My Dreams Come True, Private Eyes, I Can't Go For That, and Maneater. And then he was the musical director for Saturday Night Live from 1985 to 1995. He's played with everyone from David Bowie to Mick Jagger to Roger Waters. He's played Live Aid at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert. But most people watching this podcast know him as Bob Dylan's guitarist from 1988 to 1990. And that was the beginning of the so-called Never-Ending Tour. And he was also the musical director for Dylan's legendary 30th anniversary celebration concert at Madison Square Garden in October 1992. Which was almost exactly 28 years ago.
Yeah.
And Andy co-wrote the theme to Wayne's World. And there's so much more, but you get the idea. If you want to go on his website, you can see all the wonderful things he's done. And there's a lot of things we can discuss, but we're going to focus on just a few things. But first of all, he has two new projects in particular he's here to promote. He has a great new album he's recorded with a singer named Leroy Bell titled Stoney Hill. And the other is a special webcast featuring the duo, which you can watch this Friday. A portion of the proceeds will be donated to the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, which is part of Columbia University in Palisades, New York. So please welcome Mr. G.E. Smith.
Hello,
Hi.
Harold, and everybody.
So do people call you G.E. or G or George or Mr. Smith? Or
Hey, buddy, anything works.
Just don't call me Collector late for dinner.
Exactly.
So thanks for being here. So first of all, how are you handling all this pandemic-filled, stressful days?
Well, obviously, the worst part for musicians is that we can't play live because that's what I do. You know, I've done maybe 4 things since March, and normally that would have been, 80 things, 100 things since March. So yeah, I say that the music business is in a coma. It's not dead, but it's in a coma. And we're just going to have to wait and see, when we can get back. The hard part is that a lot of the smaller venues, places, joints where bands play, they can't afford to open up at 50% capacity. They'll lose money at 50% capacity. They'll really go out of business then. A lot of them might never reopen because of all this stuff that's happened. So it's awful what's happened. It's really bad, not just for musicians, but we're talking about that. So that's what I'm saying. It's been awful for so many people all across the country, all across the world.
Yes, and so let's get, speaking of a little politics that we just brought up, as we spoke just briefly before, when I mentioned I was going to be interviewing you, a couple people, their first reaction was that they thought of you as a Trump supporter because you play the RNC. And in this cancel culture world we live in, I would say that's not accurate. And I just wanted to have you address it because some people might be reticent to explore your music or what you're doing based on that opinion people have of you.
Right. Well, first, I do not support Donald Trump. I detest Donald Trump. I believe him to be a racist and the worst kind of person. I played at that RNC. I also played at the 2012 RNC convention, the Mitt Romney one. And I play there because that's what I do. I play. Nobody seemed to care about the Mitt Romney one because he lost. But yes, I detest Donald Trump. Okay, everybody. I just voted the other day, voted for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and let's hope that they win. One thing that I think a lot of people didn't, perhaps only read about or heard about that I had played there, they didn't look at what we were playing. The first night that we were there at the Trump convention, one of the CNN guys came up to me and said, "Don't they hear what you're playing?" The first song that we opened with, we did a section of Station to Station, the David Bowie song, which is about a fascist. Okay. I made sure that every song we played, pretty much, we did a couple just on the cup, but every song we played was commenting on what was going on. When Chris Christie came out, we played "I Want Candy." When Newt Gingrich came out, we played "Eminence Front," the Who song, which is about a put on, as Townsend says in the song. He's a put on, you know. The CNN guy said, "I can't, they're not getting it, what you're doing." Fine, you know. I felt like the fox in the hen house, to tell you the truth, when we were there. And I like to go places and see stuff with my own eyes, you know. So if people got upset about it, that's their right. You know, the thing about freedom that's so frustrating these days is it goes both ways. You know, as much as I disagree with people that support Trump, they're allowed to, just like I'm allowed not to. You know, to me, it was just a gig. If you remember the summer of 2016 when we did that, nobody thought he was going to win. And I've lived in New York City for many, many years. You know, he was like our joke. You know, in New York City, you laughed at Donald Trump. Well, ain't so funny anymore, is it?
Right. I was laughing too back then.
Yeah, everybody was, you know. Nobody thought he was going to win.
Yeah. And yeah, I voted this morning too. Same way, Democrat all down the line. I just stood in line. I didn't want to take any chances. I had an absentee ballot, but I didn't even want to drop it in the box.
I think there'll be even bigger lines on the actual election day, you know. Yeah. So it was good to get out of. Yeah, we stood in line for about an hour.
You know, yeah, so did I. Yeah,
wasn't bad.
Excellent. So hopefully,
so I hope I was clear on that.
I heard about it, but I didn't know you were like the Trojan horse, going and playing subversive music, which is the best kind of music, you know. And they still do it. They still steal those songs that you know, without permission and don't understand what they mean, like "Born in the USA."
Ridiculous. So. But you know, he's not the first politician to do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, so let's move on to happier subjects, hopefully. Yeah. Let's see. So I started listening to the Stoney Hill album this week. I listened to it a few times, and I really love it. It's got that sort of old school kind of music that I used to listen to in the late 60s, early 70s on AM radio, that kind of soulful kind of sound. It still sounds contemporary, but it has that the feel to it, which I love. And it's a mixture of some topical stuff and some old-fashioned soulful love songs. And so congratulations. I really like the record, or I don't know if it's a record on the whatever formats it's on. But so how'd you find Mr. Bell?
My wife, Taylor Barton, was listening to a playlist one day in early January last year, 2019. And I heard this voice. And I said, "Who is that?" She said, "Well, it's this guy from Seattle, Leroy Bell." And I said, "He is great. I've been looking for a singer forever. 30 years I've been looking for a singer. It's the hardest thing to find, because if somebody's a great singer, they get snatched up quick, you know?
Yeah.
And I was never able to find the guy. But anyway, so we invited Leroy to come here to Long Island, where we live, and visit. And he came, and we sat down, and he started playing the song America, which he had just written, which is on the Stoney Hill record. And I was knocked out. And within 2 days, we were in the studio, started recording. And we did the record. It was all finished up by last fall. And we were supposed to release it in March. We were going to go down to South by Southwest down in Texas and release the record. We were going to do, I think, 3 shows in the week that we were going to be down there. And then we were going to do a tour. And of course, everybody knows what happened in March. Wait, hold on 1 second. Let's get rid of this. The virus kicked in, the 1-9 as we call it. And my bass player, Fred Cash, came up with that. you know, we got everybody, we just got knocked out. So the record wasn't released at that time, and eventually they started putting out some of the songs and then released the whole thing in August. So it's out, you know, Stoney Hill. But I think that song America really fits in with everything that happened between the virus and the racial protesting and all that stuff. That song really fits.
Yeah, it's
And Leroy's got a great voice. He's got a fantastic voice.
Oh man, it's as I said, it just transports me back to when I was young and used to just listen to AM radio and had every type of music, and you didn't even think about R&B and soul and country and rock and pop. You just listened to it all, and it was all great stuff. And there were the great singers way before autotune and all that stuff. And it's a very moving singer. I just love his voice as well. See why you got him there. So on Friday at 8:00 Eastern time, you're going to have a webcast. I'm going to read this out loud, but it'll also be on the website, so you don't have to write it all down. But it's G.E. Smith, Leroy Bell, Stoney Hill .veeps, that's VEEPS.com. And
all small letters.
All small letters. And as I said, first of all, the charity you chose, or if you want to, where some of the money's going, is the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. Why did you choose that particular one?
There's so many, you know, but I think that actually Taylor, my wife, again, was reading some stuff, and she has some friends that are in the scientific world, so that's how that happened. But this concert that's going to be on October 30th, that's Friday, right? Yeah. It's a full band. It's not just me and Leroy. You know, it's also a bass player, a drummer, and a keyboard player. Great musicians, all of them. A guy named Jeff Kazee, the keyboard player, he's a good buddy of mine, and he's really great. Fred Cash, who I mentioned, playing bass, and Josh Dion, a wonderful drummer and singer. And we had a good time, you know, filming it, and so I hope people check it out.
As I said, check that out. Check out the album wherever you can. It's we'll talk a little bit more at the end to remind you of all this stuff, and there's a contest and everything. But I love that record. So I'm going to a couple other subjects. One was one of the first cameo guests on Saturday Night Live when you were there was someone named Eddie Van Halen. Yeah. And I was wondering if you have any particular memories of that.
Well, that was really a real treat for me, you know, as a guitar player, because Eddie was completely unique. You know, a lot of guys have played in that style since Eddie pioneered it, you know, the tapping and the shredding, they call it, whatever you want to call it. But nobody ever did it like him. The amazing thing about Eddie's playing is that whatever he played, however noisy and explosive it was always beautiful too. He always had this melodic, wonderful note choices and you know, great harmonic content in what he played. He was really something. Anyway, he was married to Valerie Bertinelli at the time, and she was hosting Saturday Night Live. I think it was in '87, pretty sure. And she was hosting, and he came along with her. You know, they were married. And I saw him the first day they were there, kind of, you know, standing around. And so I went over and introduced myself, and he had seen the show, so he'd seen me, you know, playing on the show. And I said, can I come up to the office? I had an office up on the 17th floor. The studio's on the 8th floor at NBC there. I come up to the office, we'll hang out. And so he came in, and I had an acoustic guitar up there. And he picked it up and started doing all his stuff, you know, on an acoustic guitar. It was amazing. And then he was just a really nice guy, you know, he's a band, it was two band guys talking, you know, so we got along great. And I said, man, why don't you sit in with the band? He said, oh, I would love that. Okay, so that's how it happened.
And one thing I found on your website was that when you were a kid, you got to see the TV show Hootenanny.
Yes.
And that is must have been quite something, especially when you were young. What do you remember about catching that TV show?
Well, I remember the big one is that Buffy St. Marie was on when I saw it. And she did the song Codine, which I cover. It's on this Stoney Hill record.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was probably 10 or 11 back then when I saw that. And, you know, I just wanted to see other people playing guitar. Because unlike now, when everybody plays guitar, it seems, there weren't guitar players, especially I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, and I didn't see anybody else play the guitar until I got to be that kind of age, you know, 10, 11. I remember going to a dance one Saturday afternoon at the YMCA, like a dance for kids, you know, for little kids, and watching the band and watching them play bar chords, you know, and learning things, you know, like, oh, that's how you play that chord. I knew it was there somewhere. So just to see other people play, it was just, from the time I was a little kid, when I got a guitar when I was 4, by the time I was 7, I kind of really started playing, you know, and somebody gave me a little Martin guitar at that point. And I was obsessed. I was just obsessed with it.
Yeah, I remember like I did the same thing when I was a bit older than that, but used to see Hot Tuna played this horrible place called the Comac Arena, and you had to wait all day. It's general admission. I would just right up in the front, and I would just watch his fingers and say, "Oh, keep your lamps trimmed and burning. It starts with an E minor," you know, and just trying to remember it all, you know. It's 4-hour shows, but yeah, just yeah, it's one of in those days back, you know, before the internet. That's the way you got to learn a lot of stuff.
I've done a lot of playing with Yorma and Jack. You know, they're good friends, and I go to Yorma's every year and teach. You know, he's got that Fur Peace Ranch there
in Ohio. Yeah.
Ohio, yeah.
Yeah.
Great place. Like, great place.
Yeah.
And I've been going there every year, I think, since the year they opened, or at least the next year, back in the 90s.
Yeah, he was on my playing. He was a big influence when I was a kid.
He's the greatest, and he's playing better now than he ever played. He's playing so great now. And
he makes it look effortless.
Yeah, he really does.
Yeah. Like some other people I know.
Yeah. Wow, he's really something.
Say most what I'm most known for is writing about Bob Dylan. So I wanted to ask you certain things. And one of the things I wanted to, you know, like I, you know, well, you know, certain. One of the things I learned from Bob Dylan is you have preconceived notions and he will smash them. whatever you think about anything, any limitations, he'll make you think differently. And that's as a great a compliment as I can give, really. And so in 1988, I heard that this Hall & Oates Saturday Night Live guy was going to be the guitar player. And I thought, I didn't, you know, see the connection. I didn't know that much about you. And then I saw you in Mansfield at Great Woods, and it was, you know, I'd seen him like 7 times before. I saw him with the band, Rolling Thunder, with Petty, with the Dead, and it was equal to those shows. It was, you know, and seeing you as a guitar player, I remember you just played I just remember particularly the solos on Tangled Up in Blue and Memphis Blues Again. They're like the perfect solos. It's like I was just completely blown away.
Oh, thanks, man.
And
it makes me feel good that a real Bob fan thought that I did something right, you know. I was a huge Bob fan, you know. I probably knew the first 10 albums by heart when I got the gig with him, you know. And it was just the greatest playing with him. It was so much fun, and he taught me so much music, you know, so many great he'd put cassette tapes in those days, you know. He'd put a cassette on and go, now listen to this, you should know about this guy. You ever hear this song? You know, great.
So, and of course that show, I mean, he's still that setup, that beginning of the so-called Never Ending Tour, it's kind of morphed over the years. And, but basically that was the blueprint for what he's been doing ever since 1988. except this year, of course, because of COVID.
Yeah.
But I know you've told this story before, but if you want to retell the story about how you got the job.
Okay. So Bob at the time was managed by Elliot Roberts, who also long-term had managed Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and Elliot had managed me for a minute in 1980, so I knew Elliot. So I'm at Saturday Night Live one day in like the late winter, early spring, 1988. And the phone rings and it's Elliot. And this is on a Tuesday. He says, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "Nothing." He goes, "Can you get a bass player and a drummer and come? There's a rehearsal studio back then called Montana. Can you come to Montana?" This is in Manhattan, at whatever time, 10:30, Bob's going to be in town and he wants to play. I said, "Yeah, I think I could scare up a couple guys for that." That's what Elliot said. "Bob wants to play. He's in town and he wants to play." I said, "Sure." So I get Chris Parker, the drummer at Saturday Night Live, and my buddy T-Bone Wolf, dear departed T-Bone, and we're there. And we're of course we're on the stage. We're ready. 15 minutes before whenever we were supposed to be there, we're ready. We're tuned up. We're playing. Nobody. It was dark it was a big room and completely dark in the room, and there was no one in the studio. When we came in, there wasn't even a greeter at the desk, which there usually was, just okay. And then out of the darkness in the back of the room comes Bob. Says hello, puts on his guitar, starts banging on something, and we're trying to follow him, and didn't seem like he was having much fun, We didn't know what to do. Me and T-Bone are looking at each other like, So some time goes by, and it feels awkward, and then at some point he turns around, he comes back to me and T-Bone, and he looks at us, he goes, "You guys know Pretty Peggy-O?" And we go like in unison, like twins. We go, "Sure." And he goes, "You do?" And he starts playing, and we did know Pretty Peggy-O. We know when T-Bone knew, and I know those songs. I love that stuff. So we played, and then he was off and running, and we played for several hours. Just whatever, one thing into the next, just kept rolling. And then at some point, he puts his guitar down, "Thanks, fellas," and he disappears. Okay, nice. It was great. I got to play with Bob Dylan, And it was either the next day or the day after, phone rings in the office. It's Elliot again. He goes, "Okay, you got the gig. Rehearsal starts, blah, blah, blah." I go, "What? What are you talking about? What gig?" He goes, "Oh, didn't I tell you that was an audition?" I said, "No, you didn't." Thank God he didn't tell me, because I would have been way more nervous than I already was, So that's how we got the gig, because we knew Pretty Peggy-O.
I remember you did Pretty Peggy-O in Mansfield. And then
yeah, we did it. We did it for a while, and then it kind of, stuff came and went on the set list.
Yeah. Now, wasn't Marshall Crenshaw supposed to be part of the original band or something? Do you know anything about that?
I hear that, but in my memory, that's not a fact in my memory.
Okay.
Now, we might have talked about Marshall Crenshaw as somebody that was good. Marshall's my friend. He had opened a bunch of Hall & Oates shows back in the early 80s. So Marshall was my friend, and, but I never remember talking about Marshall as being part of the band.
Yeah, I think he ended up on some ads even or something, but I don't even know. Probably before, whatever. Anyway, so one of the, speaking of cassettes, I think back in the day when I was trading cassettes, I think there was I believe it was a rehearsal with you guys and Bob and GE, and you obviously. And there was one thing in particular, and I'm sure you don't remember the specific thing, but it's more to tell you the general story. Bob was playing a leopard skin pillbox hat, and he stayed on the one chord, and he wasn't going to the 4 chord when when he's supposed to. And it's probably your voice sort of instructing him, like, doesn't it change here? He's like, "Oh yeah." And but I was just thinking about what for the tour, since he's such a spontaneous guy and he's Bob Dylan, I mean, what was the whole rehearsal process for the tour even like?
We rehearsed, if I remember correctly, we rehearsed in California because the first couple shows were in California. And we just kind of ran past lots of songs, you know? I don't remember like concentrating deeply on a song the way some other band might do. Bands that have a set that they come out and do, and they do the same songs in the same order every night. You know, a lot of bands do that because it's a way to get really good and put on a great show for people. Bob, as we both know, he wants to be able to spur of the moment and play whatever he thinks of. And if there was anything that we could do well, that particular band, it was that we could go with him on, you know, his whatever idea he came up with. We were, especially after we got over the initial period of being kind of nervous, you know, and just got used to being there and playing, because man, he knows lots of songs. I always tell this story. We were somewhere one night, and you know, we would start electric with the 3-piece band and Bob, 4-piece band. And then in the middle, Bob and myself would come out with acoustic guitars, and he'd be right in the middle with a spotlight, and I'd be on the edge of that spot with an acoustic, so you could just see, like, from here down, you could see the acoustic guitar in my hands. Of course, it's the Bob Dylan show, so it's his, focus on him. And we would just play anything then, truly anything. So one night we're somewhere, and he plays a song, a Civil War song about two brothers, and one fights for the North, one fights for the South. It's the night before the battle. They meet in the woods. If I die, please tell mother I love her. And the other one who's married says, if I die, please tell my wife, whatever her name was. Okay, fine. And I think they both die.
Not funny, but.
And I said to him, like, the next day or something, oh, Bob, what a great song that was. And he goes, oh, you like that one? So then the next time we're out there, he plays a different song from the Civil War, the same idea. There's two brothers, right? One's called Boston Boy, one's called Two Brothers. And he did that like 3 or 4 times. He just knew these songs already. You know, he knows that late 19th century, well, actually, he knows all the songs. The guy's got an incredible memory for songs, both musically and lyrically. So I was really impressed by that. You know, he's the real thing.
Yeah. Two thoughts. First of all, did you ever spring any of these songs on stage without letting you know beforehand, or did you rehearse these? Yeah.
Totally. I had never heard that song before. No, he would do that all the time. One time I think we were in the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, you know. Now, any other band, you get to Los Angeles, and you know, back then, you know, Jack Nicholson's going to be there, and this one and that one, all kind of people, and you want to kind of have a polished show. Well, the lights go down after one of the songs, Tangled Up in Blue or something, and Bob comes over to me and goes, you know Moon River? And I go, yeah, and he just walks up to the mic. Oh, he goes, in C, the river, and we did Moon River, you know. He would just do, and I loved that about him, that he would just, anything, seat of the pants. It was fun.
Yeah, one of my favorite, again, I don't know, I stopped counting at 77 Dylan shows, but one of my favorite moments was when you guys were at the Opera House in Boston in '89 in October. You guys did this version of the Wagoneer's Lad, and it was just so haunting and just so perfect and
because he
mesmerizing.
can sing so good. He sings a song like Wagoneer's Lad, you know, "We've always been courted by the Wagoners," you know, which is a woman's song, right? The guy sings from his heart. It's fantastic. I remember that gig at the Opera House. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah. So so when you went on tour, it started in California. You said, and Neil Young was there for the first few shows.
Neil Young came I think. I remember the Greek Theater in Berkeley. as the first show, but apparently we had played the night before somewhere else. And when I read the tour list, apparently we had played somewhere else the night before. I don't remember that. Maybe it's because Neil came. But yeah, Neil comes walking in to sound check. He's got his amp and his guitar, you know, puts it down. Hey, Bob. Hey, fellas, you know. And he played, which was great because it totally took the heat off of me, you know. It was amazing. Stuff like that would always happen with Bob. You know, we were playing in France at a place called Frejus, Frejus, where it was this ancient Roman amphitheater where they then had bullfights later. We're playing there, and Ringo Starr comes and sits in with us. You know, George Harrison would come to gigs to say hello. Van Morrison would come to gigs to say hello. Van sat in with us in Athens, Greece, I think, you know. Doug Somm, Sir Douglas Quintet, he sat in with us. It might have been up in Canada. And I just remember being so impressed I was impressed by all these guys, believe me. But Doug was, I remember seeing him on stage, standing behind while we're playing, and listening to him and watching it, and I'm going, this is rock and roll. This guy, this is like playing with Buddy Holly or Fats Domino or something, you know, this Little Richard, this is the real thing here. And of course, Bob loves all that stuff too, you know, the 50s rock and roll, the real. He played me one time, Bob played me a tape, and he said, now listen to this band and tell me who you think it is. So I'm listening, I'm going, sounds like The Clash. This is Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. He had a live recording of them. You know, so it was great. You know, people always say, well, you know, he's like angry and mean on stage and stuff. No, he's great. I loved it. I loved playing with him. It was really an honor, and he taught me so much.
Yeah, and he's got a job to do. He's focused. He's got a lot of words to remember. There's a lot going on. He's not going to be Mr.
Bob wants to focus. He focuses. It's really something. But he's great too. He's got a great sense of humor. You know, like he'd tell stories sometimes and just laugh. You know, like we'd be a day off or something. You know,
that's like a secret weapon in a way, is humor. So there's a lot of humor in his music that people.
There is a lot of humor in his music. You know, I think sometimes people want to take him so seriously because of the tremendous impact he had on the culture for people like our kind of age. You know, he changed the world. You know, sometimes I look at that early stuff, the real early videos. You know, so strong, and he's just young. You know, however old, 20 or something. You know, and he's playing in. Is it Girl from the North Country or, you know, Sailing Away My Own True Love? Spanish Boots, Boots of Spanish Leather.
Yeah.
You know, when he does that. The playing is so good. And for way back then, you know, whenever that was, 62, 63, that chord, it's an E minor chord with a suspended ninth, E minor seventh with a suspended ninth in a nice position. Now, everybody uses that chord now. Bob was the first person to show us that chord, you know, the younger people. I'm sure Tal Farlow knew that chord, but Bob was the first person to bring that chord around.
Yeah, it's another thing, underrated guitarist as well.
Fantastic guitar player. Sometimes in the afternoon when we'd be making up the set list, he'd have an acoustic guitar in the dressing room or his hotel room or something, and he'd be finger picking. I'd be like, yeah, that's the stuff right there. Do that again.
If I remember correctly, that when you started the tour with him, it seemed like he was starting to even play more kind of lead guitar. I don't, there's not much video from those days, but it seems like he was doing at least more riffs on acoustic. I was never up that close, but it seems like he was not just playing rhythm, he was trying to expand more. Does that sound familiar?
Well, this is what I think. He never told me this, okay? So this is my thought.
Mm-hmm.
He had, just previous to working with us, he had done those 2 tours with the Dead and Petty. Was that Dead first, then Petty?
It was Petty, then the Dead, then Petty again.
Petty, then the Dead. So he had done 2 extensive tours with established bands that had been playing together for years, guys that had a way of doing things, you know? So that might have been, I want to use the right word. That might not have allowed him to stretch out as much as he would have liked to. Like you say, play riffs and stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So now he gets, 3 clowns from New York, bar band guys, basically,
right.
And it's just a 3-piece behind. So now he's free. He can do whatever he wants. And I think he enjoyed that. Again, this is my opinion. He never said that, but I think he enjoyed that. And if he did start playing more riffs and stuff, I'm glad that we made him feel like he could do that.
Yeah, I mean, that freedom, I think, was one of the sort of joys of those early shows with you. He just seemed to be really into what he's doing, which is always good, because the few times I saw you, he was into it every night. I can't say that every single show he's been into it, but he was inspired. What's that?
It seemed like he was having fun. A great thing, and I don't think I've ever told this story publicly. If you hear old tapes or anything, of like Mike Bloomfield playing with Bob, or when the band was playing and Robbie was playing with him, Robbie Robertson, if they were playing a solo, and really tearing it up, every once in a while, Bob would go up to the mic and he'd make this kind of sound, and I had heard that, and he would like comment on the solo in that way, like, yeah, this is good, make that sound. And then I had kind of forgotten about it, and we were playing one night, and I was playing a solo, and he did that, and I was just like, oh, thank you, that was the ultimate.
Wow, yeah, it's quite the compliment to join those other guys. Do you again, the stuff on the internet, you never know what's true, but was in 1988, I guess, when you were at Saturday Night Live, and I think Bob Dylan was supposed to play, but there was a writer's strike. Does that sound like something that may have happened, or does it ring a bell at all?
There was certainly a writer's strike, absolutely. Yeah. That Bob was going to be on the show, that doesn't ring a bell with me.
Okay. And
because I was the music director.
Right. So they would have told you.
I'm sure that they asked him at some point, in the Saturday Night Live history. I'm sure that he was asked to be on the show, but he never was, right?
He was when the Slow Train Coming.
Right. Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's right. All right. So let's and now I'd like to move forward a few years to Bobfest. And you'd already been at you'd already done Live Aid. You've done some big things in your life, big shows. I had moved to Boston by that time, and I saw the ad in the New York Times, and it said Dylan, Clapton, Petty, McGuinn, Mellencamp, and then George Harrison. And so George Harrison was the kicker. It's like, all right, if I wasn't gonna go, gotta see George Harrison. He doesn't do many things. And I called my friend who was really good at getting tickets, and if it's $30, $40, and $50, get the $50 tickets. If it's $50, $100, $150, still get the $50 tickets. But anyway, he scored the tickets, and it came down from New York, and it was as phenomenal as its reputation. It was so exciting, and just to see one after another, you can almost, before one person was done, then the next person beyond, and all one stellar act after another, amazing interpretations, and you were the music director, of course, of that. So when you first heard about the gig, how much did you even know? I mean, did they even tell you it's going to be like all these different people, or was it?
Yeah, one of the things early on that happened. By that time, Jeff Kramer was managing Bob, and I had a meeting with. Might have been with both of them. I can't remember. Maybe just Jeff. Anyway, he hands me a list of people's names and their phone numbers, and I was supposed to like call up and see what song they wanted to play. That was scary. Now, fortunately, by then I had met and played with Clapton. Tom Petty had been on Saturday Night Live. I knew Tom. I didn't get George Harrison's phone number. But the funny thing was, as we were putting the show together, there was no battle about people wanting to play the same song. Everybody was so great because it was for Bob. I remember that, we had like 2 days of rehearsal. These people are coming from all over the world, from Johnny Cash to Clapton, Harrison. And I'm trying to schedule an hour for them to come in and rehearse the 2 songs that they're going to do. The bigger they were, and all 3 of these guys did this, Clapton, George Harrison, and Tom Petty, all said to me, I'll come whenever you want. If Lou Reed can't come until 1 PM, he can have my slot. I'll come at 10 AM. Those guys, they could demand whatever they want, right? Normally, because it was for Bob, whatever you want. People were just great at that. They made my life easy.
They made your dreams come true.
Yeah, they did. George Harrison was the nicest. I had met George before. He had come to 1 or 2 Bob shows, so I had met him briefly at those. But he showed up, he had guitar picks that said, he called it Bobfest.
He coined the phrase, I guess.
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah. Bobfest guitar picks, Bobfest t-shirts for the band, and he was just great. He was wonderful.
So based on some of the things I've seen online, there were some last minute changes of some of the songs that were penciled in were crossed out. Some songs were crossed out altogether. Some people didn't show up for whatever reason or another, and people read it, I guess. How much of that weight was on your shoulders, being the musical director?
Well, we were talking about songs, but like I said, there was never a big issue about 2 guys want to play the same song. And no, everybody just went, oh, fine. If he wants to play it, let him play it. Everybody was great. I don't even remember who wound up doing Like a Rolling Stone.
Mellencamp started the show with Like a Rolling Stone.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the televised part. There was the
right.
the pre-pay-per-view part.
But I mean, there wasn't even a battle over that song. If John Mellencamp wanted to do it, John Mellencamp can do it. Not a problem.
So now you were on Saturday Night Live when Sinead O'Connor was on, which is the October 3rd, and a couple weeks later was Bobfest. And she did the song War a cappella. So obviously you didn't play on it. But first of all, what can you say about that experience? About when she ripped up the picture of the Pope and everything? It was very, looking back, even at the time, it was a brave thing to do. But got her in a lot of trouble, and obviously it led to some issues at the concert. But you were actually in the building, I would imagine, when Sinead was playing or singing. So what was going on?
So you're talking about at Saturday Night Live,
right? First, yeah.
She had done something, whether it was ripped up a picture or showed a picture or something at the rehearsal show. You do a rehearsal show like at 7:30 Saturday evening, and then at 11:30 is the air show. So she had done something there. So we were aware that she was going to do something. And then she did what she did. It's commercial television, right? It's great when people do stuff like that. They love it. It makes more people watch the show. Whatever spin they put on it and tell you, oh, we were offended. No, it makes people watch the show. It makes the commercial time more valuable. Not a problem, you know. What else can I say about it?
So I remember being when you know, it was only a couple of weeks later when Bobfest happened, and certainly in the audience, like I felt some tension. And again, I cheered her. I thought she was great, and I didn't have any problem with anything that she did. But obviously,
amazing singer.
What? Oh yeah, and just amazing. And but I was just wondering, was there that sort of tension backstage where people worried that there might be a negative reaction that you remember?
Or? Tell you the truth, I had so much going on, you know, that I, once somebody was like backstage and ready,
yeah,
I was fine. I was done. I was on to getting the next one, so that I knew that they were there and ready,
mm-hmm.
you know. Plus, I'm playing.
Right.
I'm out there with.
You had a job to do.
And so, no, and you know, thinking now about it, at the time on Saturday Night Live, when Sinead ripped up that picture of the Pope, I wasn't fully cognizant of why she did it. You know, now, all these years later, I understand what she was commenting on. You know,
right.
the predatory nature of some of the priests and stuff. You know,
and the cover up, yeah,
and the cover up in Ireland and here and other places as well. So I totally see why she did it. You know, at the time I wasn't aware of it, and I don't think a lot of people were aware of it. But then yeah, so she came out at the Bobfest, and there were a lot of real New York City kind of, you know, people in the audience, and I think, you know, they're always looking for a little stir, a little something to. So because of the notoriety of that previous event, they were ready to give her a hard time.
Yeah. And on a different note, when I was looking back at the set list and the time, I don't know if it hit me quite as much, but Tom Petty chose to do "License to Kill" just a couple of weeks before the election, which I thought was, and speaking of subversive music,
dummy. Yep, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So again, the show was great. I remember when by the time My Back Pages was being performed, I was almost numb. It's like I couldn't believe all these people were all on stage at the same time doing
crazy
this awesome song. Now, it's like self-aggrandizement, if I said that properly, is not really Bob's thing, really. To do things about himself, and they have this big celebration of his music. Did you ever get any feedback of what he thought about the evening?
I think that he liked it, that he got to have a bunch of his friends in one place, guys that were really his friends, and women too, you know, that people that he liked. Because I'm sure that before I was ever involved or anything, most of those people, Bob said, "Oh yeah, got to have Tom on the show, got to have George," you know, right? At some point, way in the darkness of the early days of thinking about that show, he must have decided. One thing that was great was that some of the songs that maybe weren't really well known, like Lou Reed did "Foot of Pride," right? And Ron Wood did
7 days.
7 days. And Ron Wood was rocking. Like that thing I said about Doug Somm, like rock and roll, real rock and roll. Ron Wood was rocking when we did 7 days. When Johnny Winter did Highway 61, which couldn't have been a better song for him to do. You know?
Right.
I wrote it for him, you know. He didn't write it for him. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying, but it was like he did. As we're playing it, if you ever watch the video, Johnny keeps turning around to me and going, he wants like speed it up. He kept turning around faster, faster. He just wanted it to go faster and faster. And Jim Keltner and Anton Fig were playing drums. Were like, yeah, great. It was fun.
Talk a little bit about your Beatles connections there. There was, said Ringo showed up in France. George was at Bobfest, and you met him a couple of times also. And I was listening to you on the Beatles channel the other day, and there was I know you met all four of them. I think you played with Paul, and then you lived in
with my band out here on Long Island at the little local joint, the Stephen Talk House, back in the 90s. And I lived in the Dakota where John and Yoko lived, where John was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had spoken to him a few times, and I wouldn't say hung out, but we had talked a little. And he was I mean, it was the Beatles, all those guys, it was amazing, that I even got to meet them, to be in the same area as them at different times, and to actually get to play with at least three of them, for really actually get to play with them was great, amazing.
And when I was looking back at these podcasts I've done so far, I mentioned this all three times. So I might as well ask you as a fan, Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, which one's better?
Well, it's not better. You can't say better.
I know there's that argument thing, but there's this people discuss it. I just want to know what your thoughts about the two albums.
Well, I would probably sit down and listen to Revolver before I would sit down now and listen to Sgt. Pepper. But you got to remember, Sgt. Pepper came out in what, April of '67, something like that?
I think June. Yeah, June. Summer of Love. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced, comes out within a couple weeks or a month. Those two records came out at the same time. It changed the world, those two records. I don't have the words to express how influential. I was 15, so I was in bands, I was playing. It was, deeply involved in music. And those two records came out. I remember the first time me and my buddy Eric, we listened to Purple Haze, when we heard that. Well, we knew it was a guitar, but what are those notes he's playing? Now you hear it and it's just notes because we've heard all that other stuff since then. But at that time, that was a brand new language of guitar playing.
Yeah.
And Sgt. Pepper, how vastly influential can something be?
All right. Well, so let's turn this all come full circle and get it back to you. So there's you have a contest online, and again, I'll read the URL for the contest that you have for Codine. There's if you create the video for the song, G talked about that a little earlier, and if you create your own video, you get there's a guitar, there's merchandise, there's a guitar license.
You can win a Fender Telecaster.
That
Not
particular
this one, but one like this. Yeah. Create a video for the Stoney Hill cover of Buffy St. Marie's Codine.
Mm-hmm.
And there's win the guitar. Then on Friday, October 30th at 8:00, we have the Veeps concert. All small letters, G.E. Smith Leroy, Leroy, Bell. Stony Hill. So that's all one word, all small
Yep.
letters. G.E. Smith, Leroy Bell, Stony Hill, .veeps, VEEPS.com. G.E. Smith, Leroy Bell, Stony Hill, .veeps.com for the tickets for that. And if you get a chance, go on YouTube and check out the song America by G.E. Smith and Leroy Bell, Stony Hill. I think you'll like it. It's a good, Leroy wrote a really good song and from the heart, you know.
And it's got the lyrics printed too. You can follow along, which is good.
Follow along with the lyrics if you buy the album, yeah.
And the email that your wife sent me, so it said that the video for Merck is hitting the Biden campaign Thursday. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, I'm a supporter of Joe Biden, totally, and Kamala Harris. I really like Kamala Harris, man. They give her a hard time, you know, for being tough and speaking up. Go, girl, I'm with you. You know, speak up, speak your mind. Yes, we've made a couple of videos available for the Biden campaign and the campaign for a congresswoman, I think, here on Long Island, Nancy Goroff. But yeah, you know, we just donated it. We hope if it gets him 10 more votes, great, we'll take it.
Every vote counts, and I'll they'll be embedded in the article that accompanies this video, and check it out. As I said, it is one of the best albums I heard in quite some time. The Stoney Hill album.
Oh, let me say something else, man, about this whole political thing.
Mm-hmm.
I only ever voted once in my life before this week. I voted, when was that? 72, when George McGovern ran. Mm-hmm. I voted for George McGovern. That was the first time I was eligible to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw how out of step I was with the rest of the country, he only won one state, Massachusetts, right?
Yep.
When I saw how out of step I was, I went, forget it. I'm not going to participate anymore, you know? This year, I registered and I went and I voted. I have not voted since 1972 because it didn't make any difference to me before. If Ronald Reagan was president or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or either George Bush, it made no difference in my life. I was still playing, you know. Now, it makes a difference. This makes a difference. Trump, got to get rid of him.
I concur. I'm nervous, but hopeful.
We'll see.
We'll see. Could be the last presidential election if it doesn't goes a certain way. But anyway, so thank you, GE, for sharing your time. As I said, there's the video, there's the webcast, there's the album, and there'll all be links and embedded and so on in the article. And I'm gonna get this out hopefully, as soon as possible. Hopefully tonight, so it's in time for certainly in time for the webcast on Friday. And I'll do it as quickly as I can. As quick as my little fingers can type. And thanks again for your time. It was really a pleasure and an honor to speak with you.
It was a good talk. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Sure.